So in this video we're going to have a look at the poem The Emigree by Rumens. Now an emigree is literally defined as someone who leaves one country to settle in another, and there's an implication that there may be political or social reasons why that move is made. The word emigree is written in the female form of the word, and so we know that the voice that we're going to hear in this poem will be female. But specifics on the whole in this poem are few. We don't know the country she's moved from, nor the city which is referred to throughout the poem, or the place she has now settled in. And this enables the poem to have a much greater reach and relevance. It isn't tied to one specific time or place. There once was a country. I left it as a child, but my memory of it is sunlight clear, for it seems I never saw it in that November which, I am told, comes to the mildest city. The worst news I receive of it cannot break my original view, the bright, filled paperweight. It may be at war, it may be sick with tyrants, but I am branded by an impression of sunlight. The white streets of that city, the graceful slopes, glow even clearer as time rolls its tanks and the frontiers rise between us, close like waves. That child's vocabulary I carried here, like a hollow doll, opens and spills a grammar. Soon I shall have every coloured molecule of it. It may by now be a lie, banned by the state, but I can't get it off my tongue. It tastes of sunlight. I have no passport. There's no way back at all, but my city comes to me in its own white plane. It lies down in front of me, docile as paper. I comb its hair and love its shining eyes. My city takes me dancing through the city of walls. They accuse me of absence. They circle me. They accuse me of being dark in their free city. My city hides behind me. They mutter death, and my shadow falls as evidence of sunlight. So, the opening 5 words, "There once was a country," have the sort of feel of a fairy tale about them. The phrase "once upon a time" is hinted at, and this is wholly fitting for a poem which has a sense of unreality, fantasy and idealism about it. And these words are separated from the rest of the poem by the ellipsis here, which suggests that the speaker is going to take us back in time to the city she remembers as a child, but also related to the wider theme of separation that exists throughout the rest of the poem. The speaker tells us that the memory of her native country is sunlight clear, despite not having seen it for a long time. And this is the first of a pattern of images connected to sunlight in this poem, which permeate the content. Sunlight is used as a metaphor to represent the positive feelings the speaker has about her native country, in spite of the fact that, as we learn later, the city of her birth has fallen under the control of a dictator and has suffered war and oppression. She goes on to explain in slightly ambiguous terms why it is that her memories of this place remain so positive. It is because she never saw it in that November. And if we associate sunlight in this poem with positive feelings, then by contrast, November must represent a time when the city or country as a whole experienced war. The city is personified in line 4 using something called a superlative, which is a word used to describe the highest degree of something, in this case, the mildest city. And mild seems to indicate gentle or passive, as if whatever conflict the city was involved in, it was not the aggressor. But the phrasing of this line seems to suggest more than this, that it was as a result of having these mild qualities that the city became vulnerable and a target for overthrow. The speaker goes on to tell us that whatever she hears in the news or reads in papers about what has become of the city, be it war or corrupt dictatorial leadership, this cannot break her original view, which remains bright. And the unshakable nature of this view is further emphasised by its comparison to a paperweight, which is an object used to weigh down things which might otherwise blow away. The stanza concludes in the same sort of mood, with the speaker saying that whatever ills her native country might have endured, her memory of it remains bright and unspoilt. And this is conveyed partly using the verb may here. And here it's repeated twice to suggest either a degree of uncertainty or possibility, and introduces two of the challenges this part of the world has faced: war and tyrannical leadership, which in itself is expressed using this piece of personification. Here the tyrants have, metaphorically, made the country sick. And the stanza ends in the same way that all three of them do, with an image of sunlight. And remember, in this poem, sunlight represents the positive memories the speaker has of the city she's left. Notice the use of the verb branded in this image, which again conveys the permanent and immovable nature of the feelings she has, but also introduces the idea that there may also be pain associated with this memory. Stanza 2 begins with two adjectives which seem to idealise the city as she remembers it. The streets are white and the slopes are graceful, and these are combined with the verb glow, which further adds to the pattern of images connected with light and perfection. But this opening is surprising too. We would expect the phrase, "as time rolls," to finish with "by," but it doesn't. Instead, a contrast is struck between idealism and reality, almost as though the speaker is as shocked and surprised to discover the truth as we are. And the reality is that tanks now patrol the streets, and frontiers or borders have risen to both prevent the inhabitants from escaping and the speaker from returning. In the next part of the poem, we learn a little bit more about the speaker. We learn that she left her native country when she was very young, perhaps only able to speak a few words of the language, and she compares herself, using a simile, to a hollow doll, ready to accept and assimilate herself into whatever culture she found herself in. And it appears that as an adult, the speaker has made the choice to relearn her native language. As it says, "soon I shall have every coloured molecule of it." And this is followed by an interesting and useful, if you're studying this as part of the Power and Conflict collection, statement about the power of language. The speaker uses the same conditional verb, may, to indicate that the tyrannical leadership may have banned the native language as a form of control over the people. Regardless of this, the speaker cannot forget and is determined to preserve her cultural heritage, which, to her, tastes of sunlight. The final stanza begins in fairly bleak tone, and in fact the whole poem becomes darker and more threatening, especially in the last few lines. This begins by furthering the speaker's sense of detachment from her city of birth. She has no passport and there is no way back. But this doesn't stop her from feeling an important connection and bond with this place, which is expressed in a series of quite interesting metaphors. Firstly, we're told that the city comes to her in its own white plain, which is probably a metaphor for the memories she has, with the colour white again adding to our understanding of a place which was once peaceful and innocent. And the city is personified in the next couple of lines as a child, or perhaps a lover, certainly someone that the speaker has an intimate relationship with, which lies down in front of her with its bright shining eyes. The simile, docile as paper, might remind us of the earlier image of a paperweight, with the word docile here meaning obedient or ready to accept control. And so we are shown again how easily the city succumbed to occupation. The next sentence, which begins here on line 21, strikes a contrast between my city and the city. Now, my city is the city of her memory, the one from her childhood, which is bright, free, and full of energy, expressed through the verb dancing. While the city is the city as it truly is, a city of walls with all the connotations of restriction and separation that come with it. And in many ways, this line sums up one of the key themes in the poem, which is the conflict between idealised memory and reality. The speaker's sense of separation and detachment from her homeland is furthered at the end of the poem by the repetition of the word they, which appears 4 times in relatively quick succession here, 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 and here. And I mean, just look at the things that they are doing. They accuse, they circle, they mutter death, all of which is very threatening, and suggests that the speaker and her memories would not be welcome in this city, which has imposed a set of values in direct opposition to her own. There's an interesting shift in perspective here too. To the inhabitants, they are the free ones, and it's the speaker who is this dark threat to their way of life. But the memory she has remains this bright thing, which in the final 2 lines is personified as a frightened being cowering behind her, casting a shadow as evidence of its existence, of what the city once was. And this too is a clever way of summarising the changes which the city has experienced, with the bright memories behind it in the past and the dark shadow in front.